Every man craves a great adventure, but life doesn't usually feel that way. Jesus speaks of narrow gates and wide roads, but the masculine journey is filled with many twists and turns. So how do we keep from losing heart while trying to find the good way when life feels more like a losing battle than something worth dying for? Grab your gear and come on a quest with your band of brothers who will serve as the guides in what we call the masculine journey. The masculine journey starts here now.
Welcome to the masculine journey. We know what time it is. Do you know what time it is? It must be 12:02:10. I'm just guessing, Sam.
I think it's pretty close.
We don't have our normal bump music, so...
No, but we have a cell phone. So
we do, and we're live today.
We are live. We're live from boot camp, which is always exciting.
It was exciting.
It's always exciting. We never know what's going to happen at boot camp.
We're hoping our listeners are listening, and we're hoping that we're broadcasting. But, hey, we have had an amazing time.
Yeah, it's been amazing. We've gone through so much stuff over the last couple days and so much more to go. It's all the stuff we talk about on the radio in depth, which is pretty awesome.
Well, for those of you who just heard the Christian Car Guy Show and Kingdom Pursuits and encouraging prayer, I want to thank you all for your prayers. Yes, my father passed away, and his funeral is tomorrow, 3 o'clock at Oak Ridge at Central Baptist Church. So we would love to see any listener who would love to come out. I would love to see you personally for that celebration of my dad's life. But it's made for an interesting boot camp for me. But it was kind of cool for me, really, Sam, that God came from my heart and gave me something like this to be able to do while I was processing the loss of my father.
Absolutely. It gave you the opportunity to even have your daughter come last night for a little while.
Right.
Which was really pretty cool to have her here.
And reminisce about some cool old things. Randall, who is our cook here and also the caretaker for the camp, he had my dad celebrated his 86th birthday at a boot camp. Yeah. And he still had the 8 and the 6 from when he baked him a cake that year. And Brian sent me a picture of my dad, and so it's kind of cool. It's actually very cool. Because, last night, Sam, you gave a talk on fatherhood that, pretty much had me in tears, but I guess you know why.
Yeah, I think it was more had to do with not me. But, I thought a lot about your dad over this past boot camp, and it's been hard to actually be in our cabins, because it seemed like he and I were on the same bathroom schedule in the middle of the night, and I would see him, as I would walk out, he'd be on his way, it'd be Bob, he'd be Sam, and we'd walk on through there, but, it was nice always having him in the cabin to talk to and things when he was there, and so it's been kind of hard to be here and not have him here with us.
Yeah. Well, we got some new folks in front of us that we better talk to.
Yeah.
We do. We have Jackson,
yes,
who is from the North Carolina Boys Academy. And Jackson, how many boot camps have you been to?
This is my third one.
Third. That's awesome. And so...
So what's different about this boot camp for you than the last couple?
I think this one went into more in depth with how important the father role in our lives is, and especially at a young age, and how we stay with the mother for a short period of time, and then as we grow up, we need our dad in our lives. And I feel like the more you guys talked about that, I felt my heart, just bursting out more and more towards that, because that's something that's really tender and soft-hearted for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dads are quite vital.
Yeah.
In lots of ways, and the concept last night we were talking about, not concept, but the reality of, God being father is something that just takes a while to get your head around,
yeah,
and really step into, which is really pretty cool. Now, the third boot camp, weather's been amazing. You guys had a great time. Did you play softball yesterday?
I was really tired from all the airsoft, so I just kind of sat down.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah. So it's been a fun time. Now, have you had some good quiet times?
I have.
That's good. Anything God's been sharing with you there?
There was this one verse that I forgot what it was, but I know it's Matthew 16:25, I think. Mm-hmm. It was about when I first heard this, I was just amazed by it, because it was just so. I just felt like the Holy Spirit just hit me with it. It was just how I find my life through Him,
mm-hmm,
and because I felt like I've been putting my life into so many different wrong areas in it that I haven't really found what life actually was. And now that I get to see that if I put my life through Him, I know who I am in Christ.
Wow, that's a great perspective, that we look for life in all these places that don't provide it for very long.
Yeah.
That we do have a source that we can come to and have it forever. and that's really cool that God's been opening your eyes to that. That's especially
Yeah, and
at the age that you're at.
that was William Wallace's speech, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, whoever wants to lose his life will save it. And it's amazing how that gospel plays out, in the masculine journey. That verse was really particularly illuminating for me, more so this time than any camp, and I've heard it I don't know how many times. So that's really cool.
You've been to a couple boot camps.
Pardon me?
You've been to a couple.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how many. How about you, Corey?
What's the best part for me of boot camp?
Yeah, so far.
So I think from this go around, coming in, having been here before, and just really looking forward to coming. I really look forward to the Covenant of Silences. And if you don't know what that is, after each of our sessions, they put up some questions, and we just go off for an hour, just be with God in nature or wherever you can, just find quiet. And you just reflect on those questions, and you take those questions to Him. And, like I spent half the camp last time pissed off and mad at God during those times. But, this time He's opened my heart so much to Him. He's just revealed so much to me in this weekend. Just, page upon page that is just pouring out of me. And
that one agreement that you made about your brothers particularly enriched to me. You want to share with our listeners what happened with that?
Yeah, so having found out that, my biological father, I'd never met him, and the father that I'd known for my whole life at 13 years old, wasn't really my dad. I had made an agreement with myself as a 13-year-old, because being a 13-year-old, you can't really rationalize things that well, that for whatever reason, because my brother was just my half-brother, that he wouldn't see me as his real brother, and that he wouldn't love me like a real brother. And, the enemy's going to play with you. The enemy's going to play with your mind, and that's one of the best things I've taken from these past two boot camps is to break those agreements. The enemy is going to prey on those and twist it in your mind, and you have to break those agreements with yourself that you are good enough. You are worthy. God loves you, and you don't have to. You don't have to be this.
And so, when you actually shared that with your brother, tell what happened.
When I actually shared that with my brother, he, of course, there was a lot of emotion, a lot of tears, but he said to me, it doesn't matter. You are my brother, no matter what happens. And, we've been closer ever since then. I mean, it's really, he's the best person in my life, the closest person I'm closest to on the face of this earth. And, I'm just so thankful for him. And, it's just done nothing but foster a really wonderful relationship that we have.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah, and you felt loved, for real.
Yeah.
So, Spencer, this is one of my favorite guys. Is this your third boot camp?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Well, they're all my favorite, though, actually, the more I think about it.
Yeah, you tell everybody that. Yeah, but yeah. And you mean it, though. You do mean it.
I do mean it.
You do mean it, absolutely. So Spencer, this is your third camp. So what's different about this camp for you than some of the others?
Well, I'd have to say this boot camp, I've actually back at the academy since I'm 18, and the academy is 13 through 17 pretty much. So since I turned 18, I could leave, and I would lose everything. And this past week, I've really been struggling and talking to a lot of the coaches and the staff there. And just yesterday, during the first Covenant of Silence, I heard the word determined.
Oh, nice.
And I put those two and two together, and I need to be, the Lord is pretty much telling me to be determined to finish the course, to finish this program. Because if I leave, I'll just go back into drugs, I lose all my high school. So
yeah.
I just lose everything, relationship with family, God.
Yeah. Yeah, and that may be part of a name that he's giving you, too.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah.
Right? To be determined, and that's pretty awesome, because you're close. You don't have that much more to go, do you?
I have 7.5 months left.
Okay, yeah, that
Well,
seems
so
like a long time.
17-year-old or an 18-year-old, that's a long time.
It seems like forever.
But for us, it'll be about a blink,
Oh, yeah.
I guess for me more than you.
Well, yeah, pretty close.
So what are you looking forward to at the camp that you've got? You still have a day and a half? What?
Just to see what else I can get from the Lord and just see with the talk, see what else I can actually apply it to my life and not just sit here and listen to it.
Yeah, it's cool. Plus, they gave their gun experience. You get to shoot things.
Yeah.
That's always fun.
It is fun. It is fun.
Yeah, it's been a really great camp. It's been interesting to see, Robbie, they change. You know, every camp, even though you go through the same talks, we have different people doing them a lot of times. But even when you're doing a different talk from before, God brings out new things in your life. And it's been really cool to see. It's hard to explain. You know, we've been doing these since 2009. You know, 10 years of them, and so, I don't know, 18, 19, 20, whatever.
Oh,
but
yeah.
They've all been different.
Really different for me because I actually, you know, with all that was going on with my father's illness and all that was just over the last month or so, I kept meaning to get to my talks. Kept meaning to prepare for all this, but I just had one thing, you know, hospitalizations, all these things coming at me, and trying to spend as much quality time with my dad as possible because I knew time was short. I didn't get it done. So I figured, well, no problem. I have all my notes from my previous camps. I've done these talks many, many times. I have everything I need. No problem. So I get down here as I prepare it Wednesday morning and pull up my computer, which really I hadn't looked at for a month, and all the notes have been corrupted. And so I have no notes. And at first I thought that was an attack, Satan, whoever.
Well, yeah, it's close.
Satan, whatever.
Yeah.
But I realized that, no, it was God wanting to take me deep into in other words, in order to get it right, I had to go back deep. And, yeah, he took me places that really he knew. And it really took my mind to focus on, wow, where are we going with this talk? And I had to do it fresh because my notes were gone. And there it was. And it was a journey for me. It was just beyond amazing.
Now, the rest of the story, once you finish both your talks, you want to tell the rest of the story?
No, go ahead.
No, your notes showed back up.
Oh, yeah. That's there's no doubt. I went to print my last, when I finished the warfare talk about 9 o'clock it's about 6:30, and I go to print it, and there's all my notes back on the computer. And I'm like, okay, no problem.
Yeah, it's been definitely a weird camp that way. Well, Jackson, how are you today?
Good.
So, first boot camp? Second
Yeah.
boot camp? First boot
First.
camp? Okay, so how's it been for you?
It's amazing. I'd say it's really bringing me closer to God, personally. I feel way more connected than I did when I got here. And now that we're about to leave, I feel a lot closer, and I feel a lot more comfortable with myself.
That's awesome.
So, is it anything like you expected it to be coming into it, and what's one thing that surprised you about it?
I didn't really think we'd have so much sessions in Covenant of Silence.
There's a couple of those.
I thought it'd be activities and stuff, but at first I was like, that's a lot. But now, every time, I'm really trying to use it, and the talks are really helping, and I feel like God's showing me and telling me things.
What's your favorite talk so far?
I think the one this morning was pretty good. So, because it really spoke out to me this morning.
That's good.
The warfare one or the beauty one?
The warfare one.
Yeah.
We're in a war, and
Yeah.
that's why notes go going.
Yeah, it's been crazy with that this time.
Yeah, that is so awesome. And not to mention, he took a big hit when he was playing softball, didn't you, Cole?
Yeah, he got a dinger.
I wasn't out there. What happened?
But he got right back up. What is that verse about a Christian man may go down? Because he went down.
Yeah, hard.
He went down hard.
Wayne hit a
but
shot right down the third baseline and popped him right in the knee.
he didn't even go out of the game.
No.
He was right back in.
Just brushed it off.
Yeah, that's a hot corner over there. Yeah, now you know. Yeah.
That was Wayne that hit that ball, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the whole thing. Well, thank you, Copeland. That is cool. Very cool.
Robbie,
Sam?
we've got some really cool talks left to do. I know you won't be able to be a part of them with us today. We're going to miss you. but there's so much more boot camp coming.
I'm actually going to do my best to try to. We have the Good Heart Talk, which we've only ever done once in the history of Masculine Journey, and after that, things kind of went south.
Yeah, I'd love to have you here. That would be great.
So it is my hope to make the journey tomorrow morning to hear that, because that was one of my hugest misunderstandings with my walk with Christ up until 10 years ago when I started discovering it, which is the name of your whole ministry, is Good Heart Ministry. So it's a big deal.
Yeah. God helped me with that starting in 2005, and was obviously a big revelation to me. And so anyway, Will, welcome.
How's it going?
Welcome to the Masculine Journey. We are glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you. So this is your first boot camp.
It is.
Yeah?
It is. I've heard about them for a long time from you.
I was going to say, it's not your first invite.
Right. No.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, Will and I went to church together, so I like to give
I
him a hard
know.
time. Yeah. So first boot camp, how's it been for you?
It's been really good. This is the first event like this that I've been to really since I got recovered about a year and a half ago. Year and a half, 2 years ago. And there's so many things that God gave me peace about. Things in my past that God gave me peace about. He showed me what my identity was. But I never had to really come to reckoning with them. I never had to deal with them. And so this whole week has been really up and down. I'm here with the Boys Academy. I'm just supposed to be watching these guys. But I've gotten so much out of this just by being here.
Yeah, it's hard. God will still come after you no matter what responsibilities you have.
Right.
We talk about as we prepare for the talks and things that there's times he just floors us in the midst of, that we think we're on task and being busy and we got this and this. He's like, oh no, I've got something here for you.
Yeah, plus we get to sit through, and I think it's critical really to seeing what God has for you is that all these other guys have studied this stuff and they get an angle on it that you never thought of, and you get to look at something, a diamond in the cave, and you go, oh, wow, I've looked at that verse a dozen times. I never saw that and never came close to that. I never realized that that's how that connected the dots, and that's some beautiful stuff out there.
It's good.
It is. So we got more talks coming up. I know you guys are thrilled about sitting in here and listening to the talks. But then we got some more free time activity, and there's some really cool talks coming up yet.
And the listening prayer.
We have listening prayer, which will be a fun adventure tonight.
It's a risky thing, isn't it? Which Will hasn't had a chance to experience it, but Corey has.
Yes.
And share a little bit about what happened there.
So, listening prayer exercise, I had never attempted anything like this in my entire life at the last boot camp. And again, I can't echo how much I did not want to be here. But basically, you just sit in a room and you everybody prays on something. And there's no specific thing. You just pray on something that keeps, God puts on you. And you just say what you're feeling. And it was a big moment in my breakthrough at the last boot camp. Because Kenny, who was he's like the head of the boys group. I hadn't spoken to him, hadn't talked to him, didn't introduce myself to him. And then Spencer, who spoke earlier, and they said Corey over and over again. They kept saying, I keep getting Corey, I keep getting Corey. And then Kenny, he said, he's like, I keep getting Corey, and I keep getting this image of Jesus just touching him and saying that he is flawless. And Robbie was in the room, Rodney was in the room, Spencer was in the room, and it broke me down, like on the spot. I was crying more than I've cried in a very long time. And it was a huge breakthrough moment for me. And that's when I first heard God, because I kept getting Cindy with an I or at the end, and it happened to be Robbie's sister who needed prayers at the time, and
is actually on her way right now to the funeral. Yeah,
And I had no idea because, like I said, I hadn't spoken to anybody yet.
Yeah, it was really connected to what we've been talking about, and yeah, it's a risky thing when you just start asking God. You don't know where that's going.
Yeah, it's you walk in trust with God, but you're sitting there with the group and you say, okay, we're just going to listen to see what God has to say, and you're like, boy, I hope I don't hear crickets. But so far we've done it, how many times, and God's always there.
It's coming tonight.
Yeah.
And so, speaking of that, we have Dylan. And one of those listening prayers that when we were at the Boys Academy, that's what everybody heard was Dylan. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
You remember that?
Yeah. I remember we were sitting there praying, and we were in the back room. It was in the staff room, and I wasn't a Christian then, and I was really having my doubts about Christianity, and I was before the entire thing happened, I was I don't really see how this could be real, and I was if not, then it's probably just a coincidence. So I was like, God, if you're real, can you please just show me? I was can you please let me just be one of the first names called out? And right after I got finished praying that, it was one or two people was I'm hearing the name Dylan, and I was I don't know, it just really amazed me. And I think that's one of the biggest things that helped me grow in my faith was seeing that. And it's one of the main things that led me to become a Christian, to remove those doubts from my life.
That's amazing. Now, is this your second boot camp or
third?
My third boot camp.
Your third boot camp. Okay, I knew you'd been here before. So what's different about this boot camp for you, especially since, having gone through that last summer?
This boot camp's different to me just because I'm learning to personalize the talks more than I have been. Throughout the past boot camps, I've kind of just been looking at them as principles. This is how it runs and everything like that, but I can't apply this to my life just because of how things go. Because I know for me this time I'm learning to personalize some things more than others, like the father things and and making negotiations or agreements with yourself. And I'm looking back to see what agreements I made about myself, because throughout my childhood, my father wasn't there. And there were a lot of problems surrounding him, and he died when I was younger. So I'm learning to look back and see what negotiations I made with myself, and to see if some of those negotiations are, what I'm experiencing today as problems.
Absolutely, because those give that foothold. We talked about, and that's a great exercise that God will take you back into those kind of one at a time and say, okay, let's go in and break those together. And that's a great place for you to be right now. And it'll be some of it won't be as fun going through, but at the backside of that's going to be just an amazing place for you to be. And it'll draw you so much closer to God. It'll be really cool for you. Thank you.
Yeah. Plus, you raising your shield of faith just raises all of ours. I mean, we see stuff like this with Court, and we just oh my goodness, God is showing up in all these different ways. And it's yeah. And you realize why that, for me and you, Dylan, your dad's in heaven and now mine is too.
Thank you.
Oh boy, Robbie, it's just overwhelming sometimes to listen to what God's doing and get to see just, we don't often get to see what he does.
Yeah.
We know he's working, and just to hear it, it's just constantly amazing, just what he continues to do, not only in our lives, but the lives of the people he lets us be in touch with.
Oh, man, I am personally very excited about our next guest, because this is I'm hoping he comes to every boot camp from now on, just because if you pick him on your softball team, you will not lose. There's no way. This guy's a one-man team. It's unbelievable. But Daniel, no, we're so grateful for you guys being able to be here with us, and again, seeing that bright light out in the audience where you can see that God's light in your eyes, really.
Thank you.
And you've been over at Alpha Acres, and now you're at the rescue mission. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, I spent the last 8 years, 10 years almost living for myself, working as a bouncer at several nightclubs and bars down in Florida. Kind of just fueled my fleshly desires, so to say. And when I hit a point in my life where, I didn't know what I was becoming and who I was, I just realized that, something had to give, something had to change, and I knew it was the lack of God's presence in my life. So I hopped on a bus at 3:30 in the morning after a shift and came up here and checked in Alpha Acres, man, and it's just been a blessing to let God really heal me. It's a lot of time of reflection and self-awareness of where I fell short, and all the unfulfilling nights, you know, I've lived. You know, it's just it's been real or unreal almost, so to speak. So
you came into boot camp like you weren't like a lot of people where you knew ahead of time, I'm going to be going in a few weeks. All of a sudden they just came in. You guys get in the van, you're headed towards boot camp.
Yeah, it was Wednesday, pretty much. I mean, I've never done anything like this, but on Wednesday when one of the guys down at the mission asked, you know, it's like, hey, tomorrow if you want to leave, go to this boot camp in a place you don't know with people you have no idea about.
It's an adventure, right?
I jumped on it right away. I was like, absolutely, man. I definitely will. And this place has been great, man. Again, a lot of more, you know, self-awareness, and, you know, you kind of have it's been a good way for me to see the different angles that Satan tries to come at you and the different perceptions you may have in situations that, you know, really, I don't know, it really brought a lot of light to things like that. It's been great. Really
It's awesome.
has.
And then
Yeah.
you got to play softball, so you had that too.
Got to, yeah.
We annihilated
That was my
them. We punished them. That we walloped them. It was like 24-6.
Yeah, maybe
It was.
if you're being nice.
Well, I'm being nice. Was it more like 29-6?
Yeah.
It was. But I'm telling you,
You're just glad you're playing a game that you went to Target. Normally you're at Airsoft. Everybody's shooting you.
Yeah.
I actually even got a hit. I found my swing.
Yeah, you
I
did.
watched Bagger Vance learn how to, wait for the swing to come to me.
Robbie's
And-
like the guy on the end of the bench that gets his ring like last, you know?
Yeah,
You know?
bench
Just-
warmers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bench warmers.
Like the human victory cigar.
Oh, I forgot you were on the other team.
A little salty over there.
Yeah, it sounds like they were. I didn't even play.
A little bit of salt in his water.
That's right.
Very salty.
But those games, whether it was the airsoft shooting each other or playing softball, I just think it's really a big part of the boot camp because it's a